In this lab, what I'm asking you to do is to look at 11 different types of protists. These are going to be all kinds of different types, and I want you to tell me, is that protist animal-like, plant-like, or fungi-like? I'd like you to also tell me what kind of organism is it? Is it an autotroph? Does it make its own food? Or do you see evidence that maybe it's a heterotroph? I want the type of movement that this organism is exhibiting. For example, we could have organisms that have flagella, the whip-like tail at the very back. They could have cilia, which are hair-like structures on the outside of the protist. It could use a pseudopod, a false foot, in order to move. And some of these may simply be algae that float in the water. But be careful. I've told you about the protist kingdom being unique. Sometimes plant-like organisms still have ways of movement. So keep that in mind as we look. The first organism I would like you to take a look at today is called the amoeba. Here we have an amoeba surrounding and getting ready to eat two paramecium. Paramecium are a type of protist as well. Stop before I get any emails saying, oh my goodness, I can't believe what I just saw. Please keep in mind, some organisms eat other organisms for food. It's no different than a lion eating a gazelle. It's no different than a dog eating its food out of a bowl, or you swallowing a fly when you're riding your bike down the street. As the paramecium get engulfed by the amoeba starts breaking the paramecium down and will eventually absorb the paramecium for food. That was our amoeba. On your lab sheet, I'd like you to mark down what kind of movement you saw and whether or not you think that organism is a heterotroph or an autotroph. Our next protist that we're going to look at is Spirogyra. Magical Mary, she shivers the timbers and lays you on the ground. Nope, no. That Spirogyra is a British band from the 1970s that used to do folk progressive rock. This is what I mean by Spirogyra. And we can listen to Spirogyra while talking about Spirogyra. And this is Spirogyra, sometimes called water silk. It is a type of green algae. It is a colonial organism, meaning that it likes to join up with other organisms like itself to be in a larger group. You can see the individual boxes right here. Each one of those is an individual cell. On their own, they would be fine, but they like to join up together. One. And that's Spirogyra. Remember, these organisms are all eukaryotic, meaning all their cells have a nucleus. I'd like you to write down right now whether you think Spirogyra is heterotrophic or autotrophic, and what kind of movement you saw, if you saw any. All right, our next protist is called Volvox. Volvox is one of the more prettier protists. Volvox is a single-celled organism, but lives in a colony of other cells. So one of these cells gets together with another, and then they start building up, and they can have up to over 50,000 cells living as a group. First discovered by one of my favorite scientists' names to say is Anton von Leeuwenhoek. Yeah, that guy right there. So let's take a look and discover a little bit more about Volvox. You heard that too, right? Okay. So that's Volvox. What I'd like you to do is to tell me if you saw any kind of movement and what type of movement that would be, and whether you think Volvox is a heterotroph or an autotroph. The next protist you're going to look at is called a Blepharisma. Blepharisma is one of our larger protists, so it's easy to find underneath the microscope. These organisms can be found in both fresh and salt water, so let's give it a shot. Let's take a look at what a Blepharisma looks like.
You hear that? Hear what?
Come listen to this.
I don't hear anything.
Hold on. Put this on.
I like this. Nice. What the heck was that?
Right?
That is awesome! I gotta give me one of these.
All right, I need to thank my friend Mr. Maddox for helping me out with that strange lab looking at the Blepharisma. So what you need to do right now is take some time, think about that organism. How do you think it moves? How do you think it gets energy? Is it a heterotroph or an autotroph? Go ahead and make your answers right now. So our next protist that we're going to take a look at is what's known as a Euglena. Euglena is a pretty unique type of protist. Listen for some of the facts that I'm going to give you while looking at our Euglena. Wonder what kind of soundtrack this one's going to have. The Euglena is certainly a unique type of protist. Moving with a flagellum in the back, it has both animal and plant characteristics. It has chlorophyll inside of it, but it also will eat other organisms for food. The red eye spot that you see there is used to detect sunlight and is a primitive type of eye. It can't really see things except light. Now let's get back to the soundtrack of the Euglena. So that's the Euglena. I'd like you to take a look at your lab sheet right now. Write down or circle the answers that you believe what the Euglena is, what type of movement it has, and whether it is a heterotroph, autotroph, or something else. Our next protist is a Stentor. A Stentor is a very large horn-shaped protist, and it is one of our bigger ones that we will take a look at during this lab. All right, let's have a peek.
He's constantly confusing, confounding the British henchmen. Everyone give it up for America's favorite fighting Frenchman!
The Stentor. Yes, this organism has some amazing regenerative abilities. If you cut it in half, it'll regrow each half. If you cut its head off, it'll grow the bottom part. If you cut the tail off, it'll regrow the head part. That's our Stentor. So go ahead right now and let's get some answers down for what you think the Stentor is. Let's always keep in mind, these protists are eukaryotic. Their cells do have a nucleus, and the ones we're looking at are all single-celled organisms. Some of them live in colonies with others, like the Volvox that we saw, and the Spirogyra, but they are their own individual cells that if they broke apart from that colony, they could go on living the way any living thing can. All right, our next protist that we're going to look at is Closterium. Closterium normally has lots of movement inside of it. So we're going to focus in on one particular part of the Closterium. Here's an actual picture of the entire Closterium. Okay, you saw that entire Closterium, that kind of crescent moon shape. We're now going to focus in on just one part of that Closterium. All right, that was Closterium. It seems like every one of these protists comes with its own soundtrack. So let's mark our answers down and see who's next. Cosmerium is our next protist. Cosmerium has a very unique way of reproducing, and I hope to be able to show you that reproduction right now. Each side of this Cosmerium will grow another half to that Cosmerium, and then they will separate, becoming two individual organisms. All right, Cosmerium's always an interesting one to look at in the lab. We have a fast-moving protist to look at in Didinium next. Didinium sometimes moves so fast that we've got to put a special chemical on the slide to slow Didinium down. Let's take a look at the fast-moving Didinium.
Head out on the highway, looking for adventure, and whatever comes our way. Yeah.
When Didinium's hungry, Didinium can really, really eat. Let me show you. There you go, that's Didinium. I'd like you to mark down heterotroph or autotroph. That one shouldn't be too hard. And the way it moved around, zipping around our slides. Chlamydomonas is next. Big long word for this type of protist. So let's get into it, see what Chlamydomonas is up to. Here we go again. Okay, let's mark down our answers on our lab sheet for Chlamydomonas. All right, and finally, the diva of the protist world, Euplotes. Let's see what Euplotes is up to right now. What'd I tell you? enjoyed Euplotes' little film that he put together. And now I'd like you to make sure all of your protist lab is complete. Make sure everything is marked. If you need to go back, feel free to go back and check out some of these protists. They're all pretty unique in their own ways.